Today, I'm talking with Toni Carey. She is the executive producer of the Morning After Show and marketing director for Layla. Before Layla, Toni co-founded Black Girls Run, a national organization that empowers Black women to live a healthy and active lifestyle. To this day, Toni remains active and currently teaches yoga on top of literally everything else she does. I am happy to have met Toni through our work with Layla, and I know you'll love her just as much as I do. Also, look at this picture of her standing next to Oprah.
Yay!
Yes, it's the last one, but it's good. I'm glad you're the last interview. Who decided you would be the last interview?
I was thinking about it and I was like, I should be the last interview.
What makes the Morning After Show so important for you as an EP?
We as Black women aren't having these conversations, and let alone, we're not having them amongst ourselves, and we're certainly not having them on any particular platform. I'm able to talk freely about sex and relationships and masturbation and all these different things in a way that I wasn't able to do before. And I'm like knocking on 40. So I'm an extra grown woman. We're all trying to figure this out together. It doesn't matter if you're 15, 16 or 40, 50 or whatever. It's such an area that is in a lot of ways untapped because we're not willing to have the conversations.
When you're 16, you're definitely not supposed to be talking about this stuff, like, let alone 36, you know?
There have been so many times in this campaign where I was like, oh God, if I would have just had Layla, like I could have avoided like 3 years of my life.
Oh my gosh.
To be empowered at 15, 16 to think about these things and like have these conversations, my life would have been probably completely different. Mm-hmm. And my adulthood would be different too. I wouldn't have to be like unlearning so much. I'm gonna go on a limb here and say abstinence doesn't work. We're fighting human nature here and like procreation and what our bodies were intended to do. So like abstinence sounds really great in theory, but I think about this often. If I were ever have a daughter, I would much rather just prepare her to make her own decisions, and if she, feels like she's ready to have that experience, give her all the information, like the emotional part of it, the power part of it, your brain isn't fully formed. So like, is this really, really what you want to do? Like, let's talk about the whole spectrum and not just like start and stop with don't do it. When you are ready to have a relationship, it's like this minefield that you now have to navigate because you don't know your body, you don't know what you like, you don't know what you don't like. And so there's this like whole learning curve that has to happen just because you didn't get it earlier in those formative stages.
Mm-hmm. And then also like knowing how to show up in the bedroom and the empowerment piece, right? Like, even if you learn it in school, even if they tell you, oh, you can get all these STDs or this is how sex works, but nobody tells you emotionally what that's like, and how you'll feel afterwards. You get kind of surprised, like, it's never what you expect your first time to be like, at all. Another thing too. So here's the thing: boys are taught about sex, right? And then girls aren't. So you get into the bedroom and he knows more than you know, and he's trying to tell you things, and they might not even be right, but if you're like, oh, this boy has had a lot of sex and I haven't, then a lot of times you're going to believe what he's telling you.
Yeah. There's so much power given away. I think about that a lot in my own life of like how I give my power away, whether it's in relationships or at work or just like out in the world. And in the bedroom, I feel like it's one of the most vulnerable places where it's so easy to take the lead from someone else. And you end up finding yourselves in what you said of like afterwards feeling like I can't put my finger on what doesn't feel right, but that didn't feel right. Not being able to vocalize that or use your power to call it, to name it, and do something about it if it doesn't feel good. It's all connected to each other.
Like what you said, the whole you feeling like this wasn't right, but not even being able to name it and name what it is, that's the worst feeling, because now you don't even know how to vocalize it or tell your partner, or even just talk to yourself about it. And that's scary. Like I've been in situations where I've cried afterwards and had to figure out what went wrong.
What was that?
And, right. And you know, and you don't want to blame your partner, but then it's like, well, what was it? There's sometimes where you think you're gonna want sex, like you're just like, oh, I'm a little whatever, and I'm gonna do this because I want to know what it's like to do this. I want to know what it's like to have a one night stand or whatever. And then you wake up the next day and you realize that's not you, and that felt really bad. And maybe your friend, it felt amazing for her, but it didn't feel amazing for you.
I feel like guys get a head start in some way. I don't know how. I don't know what kind of club they got going on or what's happening, but it feels like they always get like a head start when it comes to sex. And my first sort of like real conversation with girlfriends about sex was I was a sophomore in college. So that whole time I was winging it by myself.
It shouldn't have to feel like this taboo thing at all.
Yeah.
To have those conversations, especially if they're your friends. Can you talk about everything else, you know? Right.
I think, women can often not be kind to other women. And I think, as I think about myself and my relationships with women, I think that is probably one of the things I'm most ashamed of, is just like that judgment based on the number of partners that you've had. And something I really regret, because again, who am I to name a number and say, like, if you're within this range, then, you're not a hoe. But anything outside of that, like, you're a hoe. Like, what? Who makes up these rules?
And men are just stacking up their numbers, like
Lord Jesus. Yeah, it's
going into receiving pleasure. I just know that we weren't taught to receive pleasure, and boys, I remember growing up, boys were like, oh, I'm never gonna like eat vagina, like I'm never gonna eat pussy, like that's nasty, like that was considered like nasty. And girls were still having sex with these guys, so essentially I often wonder how many teenage girls have sex and like have never had an orgasm, have never experienced an orgasm,
If you don't know what brings you pleasure, how can anyone do that for you? And like masturbation, like there's plenty of ways for you to have that self-discovery with yourself, to understand what you like and don't like. I think that's also the danger of like watching porn, because it doesn't come easy. Like orgasms don't come easy for a lot of people, and that is okay. It's fine. Like it's normal.
Even in porn, every girl is like, oh, I'm coming in the middle of sex. And then when I started having this, I was like, wait, why is that not working for me? So I had to do research, find out that 70% of women can't even come during sex, but every girl in porn is coming during sex. And guys who are basing their sex life off of porn may think something's wrong with you because you can't come during sex.
Right.
And then, or they may think something's wrong with them because they can't make you come during sex.
No one wins when we're not having these conversations, whether you're a guy, girl, whatever. Everyone is unique, and something that may turn me on may turn someone off, and that's fine. And as long as you're, protecting yourself, protecting the other person, not doing anything malicious or like with ill intent or hurting people, do you?